Hey y'all, Miles Best here, journalist and host of this dope Emmy Award-winning show, Above the Noise. It's the end of June, which means it's the end of Pride Month, so brands can take down their rainbows and go back to totally ignoring LGBTQ issues. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But here at Above the Noise, we're above all that. We're going to talk to y'all about some legislation affecting trans athletes, which has been getting tons of media attention. So here's the deal. This year in 2021 alone, over 20 states have introduced bills that would ban trans girls from competing in girls' sports in middle and in high schools. Some bans even apply to elementary school and college. And these bills are controversial, to say the least. Like, you've got former Olympic gold medalist Caitlyn Jenner, who is running for governor in California and is herself a trans woman, saying that trans girls on girls' teams just isn't fair. But a lot of current athletes think these bills aren't really about fairness in women's sports. And female soccer star Megan Rapinoe wrote a whole op-ed about this issue, saying these bills are some of the most intense political assaults on LGBTQ people in recent years. So today, we're taking a closer look at this issue and asking, what's the debate around trans girls in sports all about? The debate is centered around an idea that if a trans girl was assigned male at birth, they have a physical advantage over girls who aren't trans, and therefore competing in girls' sports would be unfair. Otherwise, they'd come in and dominate the sport and push cis girls out. It'll be the end of women's sports, they claim. But on the other hand, opponents are like, nah, these bills don't do anything to make girls' sports more fair. Instead, what they do is marginalize, exclude, and hurt trans youth, who are already vulnerable and more at risk for being bullied. They say that the bills are anti-trans and are trying to solve a problem that just doesn't exist. Now, you might be wondering, hey Miles, what's up with trans boys? Can they play on boy sports teams? Good question. Well, the issue of fairness is raised less. Since they were assigned female at birth, the assumption is that they don't have a physical advantage over cis boys. But I will say, in Texas, where all high school athletes are required to play on the team of the sex on their birth certificate, it was an issue for Mac Beggs, a trans boy wrestler who won the Texas Girls Wrestling Championship. Now, before we go on, let's clear up what we mean when we say trans girls. Trans is short for transgender, and trans girls are girls. So here's the deal. People often confuse sex and gender. Sex is a label assigned by a doctor at birth and is primarily based on whether you're born with a penis or a vagina. It's what's written on your birth certificate. But the reality is that it's more complex than that. Sex is actually based on a combination of body features, including chromosomes, hormones, internal and external reproductive organs, and secondary sex characteristics like beards, Adam's apples, breasts, things that happen during puberty. But sex doesn't always fit into a neat male and female category. For example, there are people who are intersex, which means they are born both with a mix of male and female characteristics. A baby can be born with male genitalia on the outside and female parts on the inside. So sometimes people who are intersex don't even know they're intersex until puberty, when those secondary sexual characteristics show up, or don't. But at birth, most states only recognize male or female on birth certificates, so sometimes parents and doctors have to choose one. Gender, on the other hand, is based on society's expectations about how people of assigned sexes should look and act. This is where we get the ideas of what's masculine and what's feminine. And throughout history, it's been used to control and marginalize people. Like, a woman's place is in the kitchen and boys don't cry. You know, the good old patriarchy. We just love it. And the term transgender is an umbrella term for people whose gender identity differs from the sex they were assigned at birth. So, for example, a trans girl could have been assigned male at birth, but they identify as a girl. Some trans girls will change certain characteristics like their name, their pronouns, the way they dress in order to match their gender identity rather than their assigned sex. Some may also seek medical intervention like puberty blockers or hormone therapy. What does that mean, you might ask? Well, testosterone is the hormone responsible for male secondary sex traits, and estrogen is the hormone responsible for female sex traits. So puberty blockers work by blocking those sex hormones in order to delay the development of secondary sexual characteristics. And then the term cis or cisgender describes someone who isn't transgender. They identify as the same gender they were assigned at birth. And a major part of trans politics is acknowledging that gender and sex are not a binary. It's more like a spectrum. Being trans does mean different from assigned sex at birth. But the lived definition of transness really has nothing to do with chromosomes or body parts. It's how you feel inside. And the transition is a process that is unique for every trans individual and can happen at different ages and stages of their lives. This can be hard for cis people to understand, but ultimately, it's about being true to your authentic self. Alright, so back to the legislation. With names like Fairness in Women's Sports Act or Save Girls Sports Act, the names of the bills alone often reveal their bias. Save the girls! These bills are often backed by conservative and religious legal groups like Alliance Defending Freedom, which has a track record of pushing anti-LGBTQ policies. When I first heard about all these bills popping up, I immediately thought, oh dang, is this a thing? Are trans girls dominating and winning all these high school sports competitions? And the answer is no, not really. Take my home state, California. In 2013, California passed a law allowing trans athletes to compete with the gender they identify with. So pretty much the opposite of the laws we're talking about today. And while researching this episode, I haven't been able to find any highly publicized incidents of trans girls dominating girls' sports in California and systematically beating out cis girls. And when you look at college sports, out of the 200,000 student athletes participating in NCAA sports, only about 50 are trans. So the narrative of trans girls invading and dominating women's sports is just not true. In all the articles I've read about this, most supporters of the ban point to an example in Connecticut where 2 trans girls combined to win a bunch of girls running championships. It was such a big deal that on behalf of 3 girls, the religious legal organization, Alliance Defending Freedom, actually filed a federal lawsuit to block trans girls from girls' sports.
I was defeated before stepping onto the track, but I said nothing. Kept it to myself, knowing a biological male had been breaking records in the girls' events he participated in. I knew it wasn't fair to me or to any of the other girls competing at the state open. And I knew it then and now that it is not fair for any boy to compete against girls. Mentally and physically, we know the outcome before the race even starts. That biological unfairness doesn't go away because of what someone believes about gender identity.
Now, I just want to point out that in this statement, the runner refers to the trans girls as boys, and the language of the lawsuit and a lot of the bills also refer to trans girls as biological males, which trans advocates say is a term that is intentionally used to oversimplify gender and mislead people. Okay, so back to the argument that being assigned male at birth means you will automatically be bigger, faster, and stronger than cis girls. I mean, that is a big reason why men and women's sports are separated to begin with. And if you compare men and women's Olympic sporting records, the idea shakes out. It's pretty accepted that men can perform 10 to 12% better than women in any given sport, and this advantage is largely attributed to testosterone. But as ACLU attorney Chase Strangio, who is fighting against these bans, puts it, supporters are acting like LeBron James is gonna put on a wig and play basketball with 4th graders. And not just one LeBron James, 100. In reality, you're talking about little kids who just want to play rec sports. They just want to get through life. And opponents point out that not all trans girls' bodies are the same as boys' bodies. For example, trans girls who have had puberty blockers or are on hormone therapy do have different bodies than cis males. And research suggests that with these kinds of medical treatments, those physical advantages go down. And because of this, the NCAA allows trans girls to play on girls' teams if trans girls have been suppressing testosterone for at least 1 year. And the extent to which these physical advantages decrease all varies depending on how long you've had treatments and if you had them before or after puberty. And for kids in elementary and in middle school who haven't gone through puberty, differences in physical abilities are less pronounced. Not to mention, it's entirely possible for a cisgender woman or girl to have more impressive size and strength than a transgender woman or girl. Being trans doesn't guarantee you're gonna be bigger and stronger than all the other competition. Plus, there's also, skill that's involved in winning.
When I started hormone therapy, I've been on it for about a year and a half now, I want to say, maybe a year and 9 months. And during that, once you hit a certain point in time, my muscle mass went completely down to the average female level. My hormone levels for estrogen and testosterone are both at cisgender female levels.
That's Esme Silverman, a tennis player who just graduated high school.
These bills are harmfully impacting LGBTQ+ kids. This is leading to people feeling more unsafe in schools. This is leading to people feeling more discriminated against in schools. This is leading to people discriminating against LGBTQ plus students in schools, specifically trans girls.
And safety is a big issue for trans youth. Trans youth already have higher rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide attempts. And research shows that a lot of that is driven by rejection of someone's gender identity. And there's more to sports than just winning and losing. It's about teamwork, community building, staying active, and just having fun with your friends. Playing sports provides so many great benefits like improved academic performance and better mental health. And many female athletes also argue that these bans are not actually good for women's sports. And Shale Reeve, the head coach of the WNBA's Minnesota Lynx, put it this way.
What's really harming women's sports is an overall lack of investment in whether in resources for athletes, for female athletes, opportunities to coach in the profession, lack of pay, so severe pay disparities. Those are the true threats to women's sports.
It does seem pretty wild to me that there's all these bills popping up about protecting women's sports that are centered around this very nuanced issue. I mean, talking with Esme and learning about her experiences coming out and playing sports really kind of makes me think about how layered the issue really is, and it raises a lot of questions for me. Like, why is this a thing that lawmakers are concerned about anyway? Why are they spending time and money on these blanket bills when collegiate and professional organizations for years have been developing rules around this so that they can be more inclusive? Like, what does fairness in sports mean anyway? But you know the drill. Let us know what you think. What do you think about this legislation? And if you are trans and looking for resources, check out our links in the description below. As always, thank you for watching. And if you want to learn more about how gender identity is taught or not in schools, check out our video on sex ed, which we made with PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Labs. It's a good one. As always, I'm your host, Miles Best. Peace out.